Hello, my name is Rosa Maria Cisneros, and I am from Coventry University from the Center for Dance Research. I hosted today's first event of the Europeana WEAVE Cafe series on diversity and inclusion. This is part of four events that we're hosting online on the topic of diversity and inclusion. In today's event, we had a recap of the previous Lab Day series that we held within the WEAVE project, and then we also framed the rest of the upcoming capacity building strand. And so we offered a brief overview of the lab days that we held between September to December. That information is online. You can find the recordings also online. We sat down with a number of different experts in today's lab day that offered their perspective. And that included Anna Mirga from ERIAC, as well as Jolan Wietz from Europeana, and also Alexandru Stan, who is the coordinator from IN2 for the WEAVE project.
Yes, I gave actually in the very beginning of today's cafe a short introduction about the project and explained the three pillars that of engaging the different cultural communities, of bringing their new and very exciting tangible and intangible heritage and the digitized content of it to Europeana. That being as the first pillar of the project, and explain the second pillar, which is that of creating a methodology and a framework for engaging with the different communities and for actually organizing this type of events, creating and building capacity. And the last pillar, which is that of a series of digital tools to support these activities that allow both community members and also professionals to more easily work with digitized tangible and intangible heritage. And after that, Fred explained in a bit more detail what the capacity building strand is about.
So yes, I'm Fred Truijen from Leuven University, and I was here with the interest in how we can translate what we learn in the project into instructions and capacity building for the heritage sector. And I was focusing on how we could take the perspective of the communities that have a stake in heritage, and some of these communities are not so well represented in the way they are described and their heritage is described. So I was focusing on that, but I then learned from Tola, who will be leading the next sessions in this workshop series, that these communities have a kind of institutional value in themselves, that they are reflecting on their cultural memory as a heritage, and that we must try to see how this works and how that can be an equal party to what we consider heritage to be. So it's not only the institutions, but it's also these communities. And for that, it was very interesting that we had a testimonial from Anna, who is a representative in this case of the Roma community. So Anna, we can switch to you.
Hi, I'm Anna Mirga Kruszelnicka. I'm Deputy Director of ERIAC, the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture. And in today's discussion, I wanted to bring a little bit closer the specific Roma experience with regards to cultural heritage, both in the way we try to work with our own cultural heritage, but more importantly, how majority institutions have been treating heritage of Roma. And I highlighted some of the problems that we have been experiencing as a community, which include, among other things, questions of misrepresentation, questions of stereotypization or mislabeling, and also question of the lack of access to the cultural heritage that's stored and kept by majority institutions. And in that discussion that unraveled thereafter, I was interested to learn how these experiences do resonate and are echoed by other underrepresented communities. So we discussed the questions of the importance of contextualization of collections that are being stored, the questions of rereading of the collections from a perspective of racism or power, and also the questions of the intangible cultural heritage as a way of creating counter narratives and providing these very much needed contexts to collections that we store. And I think then we continued with a discussion that was led by Jolan.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm Jolan Woutz. I work as a collections editor at Europeana, and I was very honored to be able to talk about the work that we've been doing at the Diversity and Inclusion Cross Team at this WEAVE event. It was really interesting to hear all of the input of the other speakers as well. One of the tasks that I was able to talk about and that we're currently working on is our opening up our own editorial platform on Europeana.eu to become a platform where anyone can submit their own stories, their own blogs, their own narratives, so that we can highlight in that way otherwise underrepresented narratives in Europeana's collections. And that's one of the things that the WEAVE project is doing as well by creating these stories. For me, one of my main takeaways of this event was that I learned about some really interesting resources, academic resources that are a critical reflection on how cultural heritage platforms like Europeana can engage in ethical stewardship of the collections that we have by giving a voice to underrepresented communities and to ensure that we have safeguards in place like content warnings and disclaimers to ensure that we don't do any harm to the people that are wanting to look at our collections and reuse them. So the collaboration of Europeana in projects like WEAVE is really important to me to ensure that the collections that we get in so that we can work with them are really diverse and are not only diverse, but are also curated and co-created by the underrepresented communities that we want to get more narratives from. So this was a really interesting event to be a part of. And I want to give a big thank you again to Rosa for helping host and moderate this event for the WEAVE project. So thank you.